Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Biernath. I'm a special needs planning attorney in the Atlanta area. This is part 2 of our series in special needs planning. In part 1, we looked at why it's important for parents to engage in special needs planning, and in this section we're going to take a closer look at special needs trusts and how it's used to leave your child in the best possible situation to take full advantage of whatever government benefits may be available to them. Because Medicaid and SSI limit the amount of available resources to $2,000, the state's estate plan does nothing to protect your child with special needs. But mom and dad can take steps to create a special needs trust and leave assets in that trust, thereby creating a pool of resources designed to supplement and not supplant those government benefits. It's also a great way to express your desires about what you would like to provide for your child in the future, and to provide a framework of care and management to make sure your child has people around them to look out for them. Now, if you've spent any time online researching special needs trusts, you may be a bit confused. I recently received a brochure for lawyers to attend a CLE, a continuing legal education program, teaching lawyers how to use special needs trusts in special needs planning situations. And right on the front cover of that brochure, they indicated one type of trust and had a little blurb about what it could do. Well, their little blurb was wrong. And I even showed it to several other attorneys that I work with that engage in special needs planning as well, and we all got a nice little chuckle about it. But it does show there's a lot of confusion about special needs trusts. And some people think there's just one kind of special needs trust, and that's just simply not true. There are several varieties of special needs trusts. Knowing which one is right for you is what an attorney that will sit down with you, look at your situation, look at your family, and help you identify the goals you're trying to reach and be able to use the right kind of trust to meet those goals. So we're going to take a closer look right now at special needs trusts at a seminar that I recently did up in Summerville, Georgia for a group of parents with special needs children. There are 3 steps essentially to special needs planning. Number 1 is creating the plan. This is the documents, this is what the lawyer helps you with. We deal with things like trusts and wills, a thing called a memorandum of intent, and then there's some other documents that go along with your planning. And we're gonna break this up today into 2 different talks. One this morning will be the special needs planning, and then after lunch we're going to delve into decision making for incapacitated adults. And that goes both for your children but also for yourself. Disability is one of those classes of people that any one of us can join at any time. And that is why I think more and more people are becoming much more sensitive to disability, to the needs of families who have disabled individuals in the family, simply because people realize this can happen to anyone and it can happen to yourself at any time. You step off the curb wrong and you twist your back and you're out. So, but going back to the 3 steps here. 1 is create the plan. The next component is funding the plan. I tell people I can create a wonderful, great estate plan for them that's going to do everything they want for their child. But if the money doesn't flow into that plan, it doesn't matter. And here, the will has to be coordinated with the special needs trust. Your beneficiary designations to retirement accounts, to life insurance, to any other kind of investment you might have, has to direct assets into the plan. Otherwise, you're going to be left with, if you didn't make any decisions about it, then the state will make the decision for you. Or in terms of like a retirement account, if you don't make a designation, there's a default designation in the plan, which might be your estate. And if it's your estate, then your will's going to cover it. But I've seen some IRAs where it says, to my then living children, which the will doesn't govern it, so the will's not going to put it into the trust. So, you have to actually take the step to contact the plan administrator and change that beneficiary designation to make sure it flows into the trust. And then the third step in this whole thing is administering the plan. We can create a wonderful plan, we can make sure the money's getting in there, but if the people who you put in charge don't do it right, that can jeopardize benefits as well. Usually those are problems we can fix. Like if we have a trustee that's not doing their job, we usually have a way to remove and replace them, get somebody in there that's going to do their job. But there's some simple things that some people will do with a special needs trust which will jeopardize benefits. One of the most common things I see is a trustee will give the beneficiary $100 cash for the week. That's one of the things that Medicaid says you cannot do. So, I always tell people the primary goal of the special needs trust is to protect your child. One way of doing that is to protect eligibility for government benefits. Another way of doing that is to provide for a higher quality of life. If you are able to maintain Medicaid and SSI, that's going to provide some extra money to meet the child's needs, so whatever you're leaving behind, those dollars will be able to stretch further or be able to provide for additional things that Medicaid and SSI don't provide for. The trust also provides a framework of care and management, not only of assets but also of your child. It's a way to make sure that you have people who care about your child involved in the care of your child. One thing I love to do in my trust is to put an advocacy, a care manager or advocate. This is a person that if family members are not following up with the beneficiary, not staying in personal contact with the beneficiary, the trustee will hire this person to say, okay, once a week we need to make sure we have personal contact with the beneficiary. Let's say the beneficiary is living in a group home. You call the group home and say, hey, how are things going? What do you think the answer is going to be? 9 times out of 9, oh great, everything's wonderful. Yeah, and it might be. But I personally want to have some independent eyes making a surprise visit, going to the home, saying, hey, how are things going? And I've been to group homes where I walk in, 1 minute after, someone threw a tantrum and, it's a wreck. You allow for that. That happens. But if, a couple of 3 visits, there's a pattern developing, it at least gives somebody the idea to say, hey, trustee, we need to look at this closer. Another thing that we'll sometimes do, if the family situation is right, is we will name a panel of people who the trustee can turn to and say, what are we going to do this year for the beneficiary? Is a trip to Disney World what we should be doing this year? Or, being able to participate in a therapeutic riding program, which Medicaid's not going to cover, or a sports program that Medicaid's not going to cover. Are these the types of opportunities we want to make available? Those are the kind of things that the trust can provide for and make sure happens. The trust allows parents to not only express their desires, but to give some legal oomph behind their expression. One thing I love to do in a special needs trust is provide for a thing called a memorandum of intent. Memorandum of intent is just an aspirational letter saying, best of all worlds, this is what I would like to provide for my child. And trustee, if the resources are available and it's physically possible, do your best to make it happen. And that's the one thing that parents love to be able to do for their children. It may not be able to be done, there might not be enough resources to do it, but it gives the trustee the direction of, this is what mom and dad wanted to be able to do for this child. Let's see if we can get it done. And then the basic protection of a trust, what many trusts do is protect assets from creditors and predators. And I'll see trusts, special needs trusts drafted by other attorneys, and this is usually where they're pretty good at. They're usually pretty good about the language about protecting the assets from creditors and predators. Usually what I see that they're missing is the stuff above. Special needs trusts extend the life of assets. Obviously, if we have other sources of income able to pay for the child's needs, these resources should last longer. In part 1 of this series, we looked at why it's important to engage in special needs planning. In this part, we took a closer look at what special needs trusts are. In part 3, we're going to look at some of the mistakes people make when creating a special needs plan. So please join us for part 3.